What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands-On channel. Today we're going to be checking out the KUKRI house KUKRI. I love this thing. Mine's an authentic one made in Nepal, so let's see if I can get that to focus. I just love this thing. I've been putting it through its paces here lately and using it more and more, and I really like it. It makes a lot of sense for a Bushcraft EDC. It's got a nice thick spine on it. Get back into focus. Nice thick spine on it, and I just love this thing. It's got some heft to it. You can see that flare down there, that belly, and it's also curved downward like that. It just makes it a perfect chopper. Not so great for stabbing, but it would probably be semi-effective. Just not as good as a Bowie knife or something like that, you know, or some other stabbing implement. But this thing is just fantastic. Show you the handle. Come on, focus. Well, I can't tell if that's focused or not, but you get the idea. Beautiful wooden handle. I love this little swell here at the back end. The only thing I don't like about it is it's a bit sharp there on the tip, and I think I may end up sanding that down a little bit. But yeah, I wanted to kind of bring you guys along. We'll do a little hacking and slicing, and I'll give you my review of this thing. I'll just tell you right out the gate here, I love it. Obviously, I love it. I kind of want the full-size World War II authentic one, which is probably maybe about that much longer and quite a bit heavier. So I plan on getting one of those one of these days, but they're probably around $100, maybe even over now. I haven't looked at them in a while, but this smaller one here, and I should have measured it, but I'm going to guess that the blade is probably about 8 or 9 inches long, and the handle is probably about 4 inches, maybe 4.5 inches long. So it's still a pretty good size. You can see there compared to my hand. But let's get you zoomed in, and we'll do a little bit of bushcraft with it, just doing a little hacking and splitting. I'm not actually building anything per se, but this would be a great tool if you were going to be building shelters and things like that, doing any kind of bushcraft work. All right. So first off, we'll just see how it slices. Pretty impressive. Can easily square that off. So again, this would be great for building shelters and stuff. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about the GURKHA soldiers. Man, there's just tons and tons of awesome stories about these guys. They were pretty slight. They weren't very big guys, like, you know, they were from Nepal. So probably about 5'2", 5'3" was the average height of a Nepalese soldier, or a GURKHA soldier, as they called them. But yeah, this thing's just awesome. Anyway, so they weren't very big guys, but man, they packed a wallop. These guys were just ferocious fighters. They were just known for it, never giving up. Just having that kind of attitude. But yeah, I pretty much squared that off. So if I was doing a shelter or something like that, I could easily do that. Great for making tinder for fire starter and stuff like that. But anyway, one of the stories that stood out to me about the GURKHA soldiers that I just can't get out of my mind. There was this guy, it was during World War II, and I can't remember his name, but he was a GURKHA soldier. He was down in a trench, and the Japanese, I think it was in, I'm wanting to say Burmese or something like that. I may be saying the wrong thing, but they were having a battle during World War II. And the GURKHA soldiers had been tasked in holding off the Japanese soldiers and keeping them at bay. Oh man, that just works great for that sort of stuff. Debarking and things like that. So anyway, this one GURKHA soldier was still down in the trench, and all of his buddies, oh man, that's amazing. All of his buddies had been killed. So he was the last man standing. And apparently there were a bunch, I don't know how many, but a whole bunch of Japanese soldiers that had him pinned down. And they started throwing grenades into the trench, which is probably how they killed a lot of his buddies. Well, the first 2 grenades, he picked them up and threw them back at the Japanese. The third grenade came in, he picked it up, was trying to throw it back, and it blew off his hand. It blew off his hand, and from my understanding, like, you know, like from about here down. It blew him up pretty good. He was bleeding pretty heavily. You know, probably most people, even today, most people would probably, with a wound like that, that would be it. The battle would be over. They'd be laying there, you know, trying to figure out what to do, or crying, or calling for mama, or who knows. Not this guy. He loaded up his, I think it was a British .303 rifle, if I remember correctly. So we're talking about a bolt-action rifle. He loaded it up and basically started yelling at the Japanese. And I can't remember what he was saying, but it was something along the lines of like, bring it on, come and get me, that sort of a deal. And this single Nepalese soldier, as the Japanese continually came down and they jumped down into the trench, so immediately when they were in the trench, he had a better shot because, you know, your field of view is narrowed up to just that one point, to where all the men are just basically one wide. So anyway, he loaded up his rifle and called them down in there, and one by one, he killed these guys. And I don't remember how many it was, but it was a whole bunch of them. This guy held off like an entire platoon of Japanese soldiers. So this guy held off like an entire group of Japanese soldiers. They all had better weapons than he did. Well, anyway, he fired his .303 rifle until he was out of ammo, and he only had one hand, keep in mind. So he had, and it was a bolt action, so he had to rack the bolt open with his good hand and fire, and he had just enough time to basically kill, probably held 7. He killed 7 of them in a row, and they kept coming, and he kept hollering. Every time he would kill them, he would holler like, come on, bring it on, you know, I'm still here, come and get me if you can, that kind of a deal, you know. And anyway, the story goes, he was the last man standing, and eventually no one would come, and he probably at some point whipped out his KUKRI and did some hand-to-hand combat. And these things, as far as hand-to-hand combat for slicing and slashing, especially in a situation like trench warfare, are pretty freaking awesome. And the Nepalese soldiers were known to basically grow up with one of these in their hands. They used them for around the farm, things like that. But the ones that they used for battle, they believed that you weren't allowed to draw it out unless it was going to draw blood. And before they would draw their KUKRI out and put it away, they would even cut themselves, you know, because it was like a sacrament, I guess, to their whatever they believed in. I'm not sure if they're Buddhists or Hindus or what religion they're predominantly, or they predominantly were back then. I think now they're predominantly Muslim over there, but I may be wrong about that. But either way, the Gurkha soldiers are legendary badasses. Anybody will tell you. If you ever want to read a story about like a real life Chuck Norris or Rambo type story, it's the Gurkha soldiers, and there's just dozens and dozens of them. The guy ended up living, of course. He went on to tell the tale. I guess apparently eventually some backups came in there, and you know, some replacement troops or whatever came in there and helped him out. But man, look at that. That sucker just, it wants to split that big log. And this log down here is pretty green. So speaking of that, let's do a little batoning and see how it works on that. Now, this is a very challenging thing for a knife to do of any kind, but we should be able to use this nice little baton we just made. And obviously knives are not made for this. This is not the intended use of it, but I feel pretty confident with that nice thick blade, over 1/4 inch thick or around 1/4 inch thick, I should be able to get away with this. There we go. Just like that, halved it. No problem. If I can get it to stand, I'll try it one more time here. Nothing to it but to do it. So yeah, I'm really impressed with the KUKRI knife, and I just love the story. A lot of the stuff that I have, like for example, I have a Mosin Nagant, and the main reason I have it is because I love the movie Enemy at the Gates, and I just like to imagine what it would have been like to be in that situation, because, you know, none of us can help where we're born. We could have easily been born over in Russia or over in Nepal or someplace like that. But yeah, those Nepalese soldiers, man, they're so badass. And a lot of people attribute it to the fact that they have pretty hard lives over there. They have to work really hard for everything they, you know, every scrap of food they get. And not only that, I believe it's the Himalayan mountains that they live in there. It's the place with Mount Everest, so I'm pretty sure. Anyway, I think that makes them a lot stronger because they grow up breathing that thinner air and climbing. Their whole life is climbing mountains. Man, that thing just slices good. Hardly any vibration comes through the handle. It's just a great blade. And even though this is not the full size, the biggest one you can get, obviously, and they make some even bigger. They're essentially like a short sword, and just great for combat, great for slashing. That's what it's made for. So guys, I appreciate you tuning in, stopping by and checking out the KUKRI, and hopefully I've inspired you to go do a little research. Just go read about the Gurkha soldiers. I mean, they're just legendary badasses still today. On the way out, I'll tell you a really quick one. There was a soldier over, I believe, in Afghanistan. Might have been Iraq. But he was a Gurkha soldier, and they told him they needed DNA evidence of the person that he was sent to go out and get, right? The person he was sent to kill. The guy cut his head off and brought it back to the station or whatever, and they were like, whoa, 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 we didn't mean that. He didn't understand what DNA evidence meant, but I'm sure he used something like this to do it, only larger, and was probably well skilled at the art of slashing, chopping, cutting, and just being comfortable with your tools. Highly recommend it, guys. No matter what knife you pick for your bushcraft knife, get out there and use it, try it out, do stuff you're not supposed to do with it. Make sure it's going to be strong enough to get you through SHTF. We all know it's coming. Prepare now. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Until then, we'll see you next time.